Welcome to the Show Me the Way podcast. My name is Andrea Miller. I am your host alongside a dear, dear friend, Tammy Thompson, and we are so excited to bring this podcast to you. So, the Show Me the Way podcast is dedicated to exploring the journeys of those who have faced adversity and found themselves on unexpected paths. We will have meaningful, thoughtful conversations about challenges we have faced and how we discovered and forged new direction. Prepare to be inspired and to uncover your own strength as you listen to relatable and motivating stories. Life has a way of twisting and turning, and we often need a fresh perspective to understand how to navigate. Let's show each other the way. Episode 4 brings us a dynamic interview with coach, writer, and networking master Emily Jacobs. On the podcast, Emily shares her dramatic career path change of going from nursing and leadership to consultation and coaching, and eventually creating an empowered moms community and women's networking event. She provides us thoughtful and inspiring life and business advice, sharing how her perspective and experiences have led her to be the successful leader she is today. Tammy and I were fortunate to learn from Emily, and we're excited for you to be inspired by her. Let's listen to Emily share her path to creating empowered moms. Welcome back to Show Me the Way podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. We have the honor of talking to a hugely inspirational friend of mine, Emily Jacobs. Emily and I met at one of her networking events. We're going to hear more about that. She is all about supporting women, and this was almost a year ago. And because of that connection, actually, I'm doing this podcast. I'm not even going to lie because she really encouraged me to get in front of people, to speak, to go after my passions in that regard. And that's why we're doing this today. So, because of that connection, like I said, I've been introduced to plenty of moms, entrepreneurs, people that are wearing all kinds of hats. I was introduced to Moms in Business, which is an organization I'm involved in where I lead a group in my area. I've met other women. I even got to speak at an event. And I got to speak at her 1 year anniversary for the group that she leads that she'll talk about, Empowered Moms. She has a very motivating story of how she went from nursing to management and leadership to starting her own group. She's a coach. She wrote a book, and I'm honored that she's with us today. Hi, Emily. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Andrea, for that and for the beautiful introduction. As you know, I always believe in like that spider web of connections. You just never know who you're going to meet when you go to that networking event that's 45 minutes away that you weren't really even supposed to come that day. And then the people that you're sitting by, you're like, now I know why I was supposed to make this drive out here. So I'm so
Yes.
grateful to have met you and to be connected with you.
Thank you. Yes. Emily's heard me talk about that a couple of times where I'm like, do I really want to go? I was whining about the drive, but yes, it turned into so much. So I'm very grateful. And I couldn't agree more with what Emily just said. And as you know, I have Tammy, my podcast partner, and my dear friend here. And we are truly thrilled to talk to you. So I just kind of want to jump right in.
All right.
So, before we really get into more about what the Show Me the Way podcast is about, we're trying to share stories of adversity or stories of when you thought your path was going one way and you needed to pivot, which we're finding that everybody has a story like that, whether it be medically related, financial, a job change, totally moving to another state or something like that. There's just always a story. But before we hop into that, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah, sure. So, gosh, in a huge nutshell, as a little girl, like I kind of always knew I wanted to be a nurse, a teacher, a dancer, and somewhere along the line, and this is so weird because it just came up to me the other day, was I was going to be on stages. Now, I actually thought that was going to be like for dancing or something like that. So then, side note, what I did as a career was 20 years of nursing in the hospital and corporate setting. So most of my career was clinical nurse specialist or educator in the intensive care unit. And then I kind of climbed the corporate ladder, went into some leadership towards the end of my career there. When I resigned, I ended up being at first a healthcare coach and consultant. So really in 2021 helped with employees recovering from burnout after the pandemic and setting healthy boundaries. And through that experience, um, What I learned from that is that so many women in particular were going through very similar stories that I had, which was a challenging mother daughter relationship. Now, how did I know that this was all going to happen? Well, I didn't. But somewhere down the line, I knew I was probably going to write a book someday, which was really weird. And I think just the stories of coaching these, gosh, probably like 200 women in a couple years, learning how similar we had these challenges and stories really kind of gave me the inspiration to put my book out into the world, which is Live Your Life for You, Not Your Mom. And from that, obviously, I can dive more into that, but from that, really learning that we are kind of in this generation of breaking cycles. And at the same time, also wanted to host this big event called Empowered Moms. So, what I did first was start a community because I thought, well, here's Emily the nurse that's just going to come out into the world and be like, let's just host this event. Well, nobody knew me in this role. So I kind of built that community up for about 6 months before our first event last year. Empowered Moms has grown to just be a very, very supportive community for moms that are learning how to go back to dreaming. Really. I mean, that's kind of like such a nutshell, but there's lots of different ways for what that looks like. One is just taking better care of ourselves, is one. Like, what's our health like? Two, could be starting a business, could be just getting around other moms that you feel inspired by. And so that's kind of where we're at in a huge nutshell of where Empowered Moms is. We do coaching and mentoring and have our big event coming up.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And you are also a mom of two. And how old are they?
Yes. So I have two daughters, which was actually also why I needed to write the book because I needed to write it for them as well. But they are 7 and 4.5. Don't forget that last part. It's
Of
very
course
important.
not. Yes, so busy mom and wore a lot of hats and continues to wear a lot of hats and inspire so many other moms. So thank you for sharing all of that. Yes, you can see there's a lot there that we're going to explore in our short time with Emily here. So you kind of already talked about the path that you were on. It seems like there were some little premonitions of what you were going to get involved in throughout your life. But tell us a little bit more about the change from nursing to what you got involved in, the pivot that you took.
Yeah, well, it kind of started, gosh, when was it? Back in 2018. We had just moved across the country. So I'm from Michigan, but lived in Arizona for like 15 years. Got married there, had my first daughter there. And then my husband and I were just like drawn to move back to the Midwest. He's from Chicago. So we moved back, and I'm like, I'm at a loss now. I have a 1-year-old, new house, back to the new job. And the thing is that something just, it's hard to admit this now, but I have to because I think this is literally most of the women I coach. Is I was stagnant in my job. I was really good at it. I had been doing it for like 15 years in an educator role, and it felt like a little bit robotic, like going through the motions. Obviously, I cared what I was doing. I put my whole heart into it. But what happened is, I think after I had kids, and it doesn't have to be at that point, but that's just where I realized for me, I was meant to do something else and taking care of people in a different way. Now, that's really scary when you have a career in a profession that is very solid. I sat with those thoughts for a couple years because I'm like, no, no, I'm not supposed to leave my job and go off on my own. Like, that sounds crazy. And then I met a nurse coach, which is essentially a coach. It wasn't like just for nurses, but she has a nursing background. So I'm like, what's this nurse coaching thing? So, long story short, I became a board certified nurse coach. And what I realized is that I loved that part of nursing, which was really connecting with people, helping them find solutions, and being a better support system that way than versus like in the ICU. I mean, we're saving lives. It was amazing. But what's interesting is I enjoyed it more connecting with the family. Like, tell me more about this person. Like, what do they like? And it was just really interesting to me. And I've always been like this since I was a kid. When I was telling some of my friends what coaching was, they're like, oh, yeah, you've been like this since. I'm like the conflict resolution person. I'm like, let's hear both sides of the story, the devil's advocate. So that's a little bit where that transition came. Again, it was so scary at the time to just flat out resign and hope that the parachute was going to catch me. But I remember my husband pouring into me and he goes, "You're not going to fall. How are you going to fall after everything you've done? There is no falling." And then we did like the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, you go back and be a nurse. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And he goes, well, then don't let it happen. And I was like, well, it's just like, why is it like that easy for you? I mean, it's a different gender also. He just doesn't sit with it that long. He makes quicker decisions, but I think for me, when I really did, I had to do what was best for me. There was also a lot of I usually have to take a deep breath to like say it in the most professional way. Let's just say it didn't align with me anymore. There was just certain things culturally that I couldn't walk through and not speak up about. So I did speak up, but then I realized this was not the right environment for me and my soul and my gifts and my talents with this world. So yeah, I resigned and then literally 2 days later. I mean, talk about like I actually remember saying in October of 2021, I'm going to give myself a few months off. I've never had like months off. So I was going to give it till January. 2 days later I get a call from a hospital system. Do you want to be one of our coaches? And I was like, I was going to take some time off. Like I didn't say that, but I was like, yes. And I had already started, planting the seeds. She's like, I can't promise your income and we probably won't get started till January. And I was like, oh, awesome. That's exactly when I wanted to start. So, I mean, it really just like saying yes to one thing. And what I mean by that is really almost saying yes to myself first and then trusting that I'm not saying that things would be handed to you with a silver platter, but by saying yes to yourself, you will then be open to those next possibilities. Now, I also believe in today's world too, you actually have to start making those possibilities, making those connections too, and just keep putting that out there. So that's kind of like the whole nutshell of like the resigning and how I transitioned into this being a entrepreneur and business owner. It's still like so weird to say, but it's been a few years now, so I have to get comfortable with it.
Yes, for sure. Well, a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. One is the amazing spousal support. I know women that I've talked to often they say, "Oh, I don't know how my husband's going to take this. I have to talk through with my husband." So, I think that says a lot for you and your marriage and your husband. I love that he said, "Let's talk about this together and what's the worst that can happen," and you had that discussion together. I think that's actually very pivotal to me because it's like don't be afraid to have those discussions with your spouse and talk through it and work together. So I love that. And then the other thing is, yes, it does sound like you just resigned one day, but it does sound also to me like you're calculated and you think through things and you had some plans in place. So I respect the way that you went about it and the timing. That is amazing that 2 days later you were able to take that next step. When I go through some of these questions when I'm interviewing people, it's we think to ourselves, okay, you were faced with adversity, how did you react? Well, I kind of like your story because you kind of set your new path up. So maybe it's not how did you react, but what are some things that you learned when you went through this pivot?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to like sound generic, but also it's very like personal to me is that when I wasn't listening to myself those 3 years, I was realizing that my mental health was declining, my anxiety was getting higher, and I'm just going to say it like almost like my lack of self-respect. And I know that sounds like it wasn't that general. That was actually really deep. And I was wondering why. Like why am I so scared of this? What's really how bad is it going to be? Worst case scenario we fail, the business fails, right? So like that's what most people think about. Well, then what's wrong with failing? Like, wouldn't I have rather tried than not? But that was scary at the time. I mean, the income I was making, my family was very dependent on. I think that first decision obviously did take some time and it took a lot of strength to do that. But I do remember it's almost like it built up over time. But then there was this moment, this day where I was like, not anymore. I'm done, not anymore. And now I also then gave another 6 months because that's just how I roll. And I was like, okay, in 6 months, if things don't change, and I will work and advocate to make the change. But if things don't really change, I have to leave. I also then put things out there like if anything happened to a family member who helped take care of my kids, I have to leave. Well, guess what? These things happened. Luckily, it wasn't that bad, but I was like, okay, if I that wasn't a sign from God, I mean, I'm very spiritual. I'm like, then I don't know what is because obviously he's trying to help me out here and say, you can do this. You've got this. And I think when I finally trusted in myself and trusted in that decision, but I will say it was probably at the time one of the scariest decisions. I can't say that now. I feel like I make them all the time now. So it's like that was just number one. But the truth is really recognizing what other areas in your life have you made tough decisions And have you really gotten through them? And yes, they were so hard at the time, but even when I'm coaching women, what most people say is after the fact, when they get to the other side, which is literally like the next day or like a week later or a month later, I wish I did that sooner. It was easier than I thought. Why was I so scared? It's like I hear these things, so I have to also coach myself and remind myself that. So yeah, that was a big answer, but
No, it
keep
was a
going.
great answer. And it makes me think a lot of actually just Tammy and I putting this podcast together because I think if you listened to my first episode where I share how my perspective changed over the years, especially based on my son's medical issues, I tend to do things very messy now. I'm like, jump in, let's do it. I'm ready, let's go. And Tammy is a little more calculated. So I keep going back to that because it was quite a lesson for me here. Like, this is something we want to do. We want it to be professional. We want to do it right and we want to do it together. Don't just jump in and see what happens. Tammy and I had to meet in the middle. So I like a lot of the things you said as good advice for the two of us with something like this, but just everybody, like you don't want to overthink because you don't want to miss out on an opportunity, but you also have to make sure you set some standards for yourself. You understand that I need to put this thing in place in case this doesn't work out. I need to have some backup plans. And it's almost meeting in the middle, making sure that you're looking at both. So, very good
And
advice.
I think too, a big thing, what I'm hearing from you too, Emily, is change. As humans, like, we are adverse to change. But I think kind of to one of the points you made also is that if we don't change and we don't try new things, we don't learn. And you have to fail in order to succeed. All that stuff is scary, but the more you go after the things you're scared about, you learn and you grow. I think that's kind of like a little bit of an underlying message here that, go for it. And even though you're doing something for a long time and you're really good at it, but you have like something else back here, like a little passion that's kind of going, well, could I do this instead? Could I succeed the way I'm succeeding now? Listen to that and try and don't be afraid.
Well, yeah, and just even your introduction, what I learned about you, and I think that's the majority of the people I coach are like, "I'm not sure I wanna do this anymore," whatever the this is. And I said, "Well, what do you wanna do? Let's talk about that
Yeah.
for a minute." Well, then they start talking about it and they're like, "It's not realistic." I'm like, "No, no, no, we're just talking. We're not making a decision today. Like, we're talking about that, but I think you're right." What I love to tell people is if that little seed that keeps planting, that thought starts growing, there is a reason, right? We have like billion thoughts a day. But if there's one that just keeps coming back and it keeps coming back, and then it kind of like twists the knife a little bit more, and then it gets a little stronger, you're like, what's the why? What's going on? And that's why where you see a lot of people make career transitions is that little whisper turned into like a stabbing, turned into this is what you're supposed to do with your life. And you're like, are you sure? And like you said too, is that there are many people that stay stagnant and stop growing. They really
Yeah.
do. My mom was one of them. I know other people that are. Sometimes that's good for them, but then other people, they become bitter and resentful and kind of say like it's too late type of thing, which obviously all three of us know it's never too
No,
late.
it's late.
But I do, for me, if I stop growing, I start dying. My soul starts dying. And that's really harsh, but that is me to a T, which is why this super ambitious mom sometimes needs some time to like slow down, but that doesn't mean stop. It means pull it back for a season or a week because usually what's on the other side of that is like a huge jump and it's scary. I need to almost like rest in the cocoon first as the caterpillar like this is really uncomfortable. I just want to hide in a dark closet because I'm about to get really uncomfortable again and then it's like it's crazy. So I think that also understanding that growth is a little uncomfortable too, but if you're willing to get a little uncomfortable, you're also willing to have and open to having a really really exciting and beautiful life too.
This is great. Like all of our listeners are getting this coaching session with Emily. So love that. Thank you for all of that advice. I know there's going to be a lot of listeners that are just going to take this and really help them propel some of their thoughts forward. So thank you for sharing all of that. So I want to dive in more to some of the passion projects, some of the career decisions that you've got going on. But You're making me think about your girls. So, like I said, Emily is leading Empowered Moms. So, she focuses a lot on women, which I appreciate and love. When I started this podcast, I said, we're going to hear from women and, maybe eventually men, but there's a lot of women that have great things to share first. So, when you think of all of these things, what kind of advice would you give to your daughters as they grow up and decide what they want to do?
Honestly, Andrea, as you were saying that, I got chills down my spine and almost tears in my eyes because, well, the listeners can't see this picture, but I had to pull up a 7-year-old picture of myself the other day, and it's me jumping off a high dive of a diving board, 7 years old.
Oh,
And I have to remind
Amazing.
myself that that little
Mhm.
7-year-old is really brave and she's still inside me. So, what I would tell my girls is that be brave because and I've got you and I will be your safety net and I am trying to be the best parent I can for them, not for me. Like what do they individually need? Because it is different. I feel like with my mom and like I said trying to break the generational patterns is she was parenting the way that she thought was best, which again is also important, but I'm trying to actually like what does this daughter need and what does this daughter need and communicate with them and work with them that way. My older one and I, she's tough. We are not the same person, but I know we will not have a relationship growing up if I don't try to get to her level and understand that. And I think I answered your question, but now I'm like, wait, what was did I answer your question?
you did. I just kept thinking about just how inspirational you are to women, and you've got daughters. So it's like they see what their mom's doing. So it just kind of led me to want to know how you work with them. I think you answered the question. And I love that you said be brave. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Oh, wow. And that picture is like such a vision of, I think, what happened, what we stop doing as we get older, and we start to overthink. When you're a kid, you're not like thinking about the world, right? Or thinking about other people as much as you're curious. And then it becomes like, what are other people thinking, or what's going to happen? Like, can I even, should I even? And that limits us. And so be brave and just do it.
I think too is like the people pleasing. Like I am was
Mhm.
is some days it just depends, but like still a people pleaser. And this is what I really work on women, especially women of our generation is a lot of us grew up this way. And it again based on our upbringings and things like that. And it served us. There is moments where people pleasing it has served us to get us to beautiful places in our lives. And then what we need to recognize is when we are over serving past our limits. But that's something I would tell my children as they grow up is that literally the only person you need to impress. Again, if they believe in God, then it's God and yourself. Like those are the two people you report to by the end of the day. Like, how'd we do? How did we do together? And I think that's important because we get lost in everybody else's expectations and their disappointments or okay, we can take a disappointment and feel that we've hurt something or done something, but at the end of the day, did I still do what was best for me? Obviously, I'm not going to tell my kids that now. That's just silly. Like I'm a parent. Like no, I want them to please me all day long. But over time, but we do talk about it. My daughter's like, Mom, what outfit should I wear? I'm like, well, which one makes you feel the best? Or Mom, do I look pretty? I'm like, do you feel pretty? I always do that for I will answer her too. I'm not just always going to do that, but I want to see what she says because she has to have the most important opinion. Those are my thoughts.
I
That's
think those are
great.
perfect.
I
I
love it.
love it. Yeah. Not only is this great business coaching and advice, it's also good parenting advice. So thank you for that. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I definitely want to hear more about Empowered Moms. So tell our listeners about that.
So Empowered Moms was developed 2023 in the summer, and really it's a chance for women to connect, collaborate, and really we focus on community. So we do a free monthly networking call. Just jump on our email list to get to know us better because it's a very non-judgmental place you'll find once you're in it. Like I said, we do free Zoom networking a month. We also do in-person events around local Michigan. That's where you're going to find the information in our email group. And then there's more. We have a tribe, we have some mentorship and coaching, just depends on how much deeper you want to go. But what I think that most women find is that it's not just for business women or it's not just for moms that have a plan. There's a lot of moms in there like I'm not really sure what I want to do. I just want to be surrounded by a community of women that support each other. Well, then this is it, right? And then we also have a Facebook group where there's a lot of connecting on that as well. It's just called Empowered Moms. And of course, I have to do the plug for our second big event where we'll have probably 100 people. We're getting close to selling out of our tickets. 20 women owned business vendors. So shopping local, all the beautiful women that are displaying their talents and their products and services, sponsors, swag bags, lunch, photo ops. It's such a vibe, and just so grateful. Oh, and our speakers are just amazing this year. So super, super excited. Like I said, we're filling up this room pretty fast, but we'd love to see you there. And just know there are so many women coming to the event alone, and they're nervous and they want to be around other women that are just like, what am I doing? But there's no criteria. Actually, we even just said the other day, you don't have to be a mom. If you feel like you belong in this room, then please come into this room. We don't check IDs on that. We don't do blood samples or anything weird like that. But if you feel called to it and you know that, then please come. I would say, our speakers will relate things into motherhood challenges, but it's not going to be like all about just moms and raising children and things like that. There's so much beautiful content that everybody can benefit from.
Wonderful. Yes, it's October 6th. I can't wait. I'm gonna be there.
Grateful.
I'm pretty excited, and yes, I know some of the speakers, so very looking forward to that. So,
Emily, tell the listeners how they can find more information about your event and your Facebook, and we'll also put it in the show notes.
Yeah, awesome. So on the website is empoweredmoms.co. Empoweredmoms.co is all the information is on our live event kind of link from the website. And then Instagram is where we primarily post a lot of our Empowered Mom stuff. So that's Dr. Emily Jacobs. So if you needed inspiration or like, what's this event all about? I would definitely go to Instagram, and we've got like a clip from last year. A lot of the speakers, everyone's listed in there.
yes, and the
Great.
clips from last year, everybody just has huge smiles on their faces, and it just looks like a really good time for women. So, looking forward to it.
Thank you.
This has been wonderful. Again, we want to keep these short and sweet so I can let you get back to all of the amazing things that you are doing and getting ready for your event. But thank you so much for giving us time. You were one of the first people I thought of when I wanted to put this show together. So thank you for jumping right in and being part of it so early on, and we appreciate you.
Well,
Thank you.
Andrea, I love you and I love supporting you and watching you grow, especially like I said in this last year. I mean, that's the icing on the cake is when you see women that are like, no, I'm going to do this thing. And as you know, like we don't let you fail. We will literally, who do you need to connect to? You know who you need to connect with. And it's like, let's do this. Let's try this out. Let's see if this is the right fit. But I just want to say thank you so much. And so nice to meet you, Tammy. Thank
You
you for
as
having
well.
me
You as
on.
well.
Of course.
Thank
All
you.
right. And we will look forward to this airing shortly. And again, to October 6th. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Show Me the Way podcast. We truly appreciate you tuning in to today's episode about overcoming adversity and finding your path. We hope it brought you new insights, empowered you with perspective, and inspired you to find joy in your journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who could use a little motivation. Until next time, keep seeking the light and showing the way.